Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. Hope everyone's doing good. It is Monday at 10:43. Pretty rainy day. I guess we needed some rain, so hope everyone's doing good. I'm excited for. I'm working on an interview right now that I very excited about. I've done a lot of interview segments for this channel in the past, but it's been a long time since I've done any. Setting up interviews or just doing interviews for me, that's my favorite aspect of this channel. And obviously, haven't done any in a while, and that's usually due to a couple of things: is scheduling. Those kinds of things are obviously more complicated. And then I got inundated with just doing these videos because I love doing them, and then I just have all these other ideas of shows that I want to get to, and so I end up getting a little bit sidetracked, and I kind of get a little bit lazy around it too. So I am working on putting together a pretty big interview segment show, and I'm gonna see how that goes. I'm not gonna announce anything until stuff gets confirmed, which could be a little bit of time, but we'll see. Fingers crossed, though. I'm excited to see, or I'm excited at the prospect. So I did two movies yesterday. It was really nice. I was kind of running low on energy, and I just kind of chilled out yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday, and I just kind of vegetated, and it was kind of nice. And I just had a breakfast. I'm a big fan of like breakfast for dinner, so I had a late breakfast in the late afternoon, and then I totally passed out. Had a big ass nap, and it was great. And then I woke up, and I was gonna like try to maybe get some music work done, but then I was like, man, I felt pretty wiped out. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit on my ass and watch some movies. So that's what I did. And Sunday's a great day. Sunday's a great day for that. So I watched two movies back to back yesterday. I went to Bull Moose on Saturday. I went to Bull Moose in Bangor, which I was, again, I just did a big show on Nosferatu. I picked up Nosferatu there, and I'm super excited, super buzzed even after watching it a third time. Or third time, for me, meaning that the third time I watched it was, I got a Blu-ray version of it that's just amazing. So I uploaded the show. But I also got a couple of titles, these two movies from my favorite label, Mondo Macabra, which is my favorite boutique label. They just have the most amazing selection of films. I think hands down easily the best exploitation label out there. I mean the shit they take a deep dive in the depths of trash film culture. I mean, I've kind of over the years I have a lot of Mondo Macabre labels. I've gotten introduced to so many films. Pretty much every one of their films are, for me, were first time viewing. I started buying some of their titles a few years back, just kind of on a whim, because some of the movies look just so completely outrageous, and I was just blown away by them. And it continues even to this day, where virtually all the titles that I bought cold, and every movie I've gotten is just kick ass, just amazing. And they they specialize in the most obscure movies. They have tons of Japanese, Asian cinema, lots of crazed exploitation movies, all kinds of European films, American films. They have the most broad selection of films too. And I got two Mondo Macabre films yesterday. I'm at a point too because every movie I've gotten that they have put out, and I have quite a few at this point. Now, I love every one of them, but now I'm at a point now. If I see any Mondo Macabre films, and if it has the label on it, I just snag it up because they fucking rule. And I watched one of those films last night and just completely blown away. So stay tuned for a show around that movie. And I'm gonna probably do a show on the label itself, Mondo Macabre. I want to do a specialty show, and that will probably happen later this week, of where I'm just going to talk about the label because they're the best, hands down. Beautiful transfers of all of these totally whacked out movies. They always have really great special features. So yeah, just they're the shit. So stay tuned for more Mondo Macabre coming your way. But today's show is going to be on a movie that I I generally think it's a crime that nobody ever talks about. I don't know. I don't think I've done a show on this. I know I did a show on this film back when I was just doing Facebook Live videos, when I first started my Film Fanatic page on Facebook. I about three years ago, almost 4 years ago, during COVID, I started doing live videos on Facebook on my film page, and I started doing review videos, and that was the first kind of go of it. I still have my Film Fanatic page. I don't really upgrade it as or update it as much as I used to, just because I feel like, I don't know, the algorithm and the way the whole Facebook thing works. I think it's kind of shitty, and I still have it. I don't update it like I used to, and it's kind of there, but I still have it, and occasionally I put stuff on it. But generally, I don't really do that much with it these days, just because I feel like it doesn't really seem to go anywhere anymore because of algorithms, and I don't. It's just kind of stupid. Still love that page, and that's where this whole kind of crazy thing started. Occasionally, I update it and put some new things on there, but I've kind of repurposed my focus on just doing this YouTube channel. It's a lot easier. It seems to have a better way of. It just seems to grow a lot more when I just kind of do these videos. It's a lot easier for me to do. I kind of enjoy it a lot more. It's a lot easier to control the content, and to the technical parts of doing the videos. But anyway, I think I covered this movie then. I don't believe I have a video of this film on this channel, or a review of this film on this channel. If I do, I probably have one, and I did it a couple of years ago. But this movie is so incredible. I watched this again last night, and I feel like it's kind of a crime that nobody ever talks about, and that is Ben Wheatley's Kill List. It came out in 2012. It's a pretty old film. I have a original DVD copy. This is how I actually saw this movie for the first. This is how I saw this movie. To give you some context of how long ago 2012 was, or is, or was, back, when supermarkets had rental places. This copy is actually I've actually bought this from the shop after they closed. But Hannaford, the big supermarket here in Belfast, before they expanded, which is the big, the biggest supermarket here in our area, they had a big revamp. They expanded about, I don't know, it's probably about 8 years ago or so. It used to be a lot smaller, and now it's just gigantic. And but before all of those changes, they actually had a pretty good video rental place. It was before Redbox. First the VHS went, then the DVDs came. They were there for a very long time. And it was kind of commonplace that you would go into supermarkets and they'd have a video rental place and you could rent DVDs. And it was kind of awesome, kind of awesome. And then all of that stuff went away. And now it's just like Redbox. And some places don't even have Redbox anymore. But physical media is gone. But for quite a few years, the Hannaford in Belfast, they had actually a really awesome DVD rental selection. And I used to go there, for shopping and shit. But I would always pick up a movie or two. And I saw some really great movies. And one of those movies that I saw, which again is just a fucking classic, is this film here, Kill List, directed by Ben Wheatley. It's a British UK horror thriller crime film. And I remember when I bought this, it was right when, DVDs started crashing big time in the market. Blu-rays were emerging. All kinds of upheaval as far as that goes. And, it's still, that the whole thing around physical media is just still changing. But I think physical media, I think in most ways, I think it's stronger now than ever. I think a lot of people are coming back to it, So, but they had when it was announced that they were going to be, cutting their video selection at the market, they basically had this like giant sale. They were selling off everything, and I bought quite a few movies, but the one that I saw and I was like, oh fuck yes, was Kill List, and I bought it. This was one of quite a few other movies that I bought at Hannaford, but this was my most sought out film. And this was the actual copy of when I first saw it back when it came out in 2012. I also, my great friend Sean Russell, who was a guest on the show, and I've talked about him a lot as being a big, person in my life who helped turn me into the film fanatic that I am. He was one of the people that had told me about this movie. He said, you got to check this movie out. The other interesting thing about this movie is it's actually a Hammer film, a Hammer horror release. And Hammer horror, of course, I've talked a lot about it over the years, and I've reviewed quite a few of the old school Hammer films. And Hammer is actually, they kind of went away. The studio Hammer films kind of went away for a few years. They weren't putting anything out for actually a very long time. And there's a few newer films, I think, that just came out that I saw that they were under the Hammer Studios. So, and Kill List is kind of marked a little bit of their comeback. I mean, I don't believe Hammer had put out any films, for almost decades. They had their massive heyday in the late 50s through the 60s and 70s and the 80s. And of course, they put out so many iconic vampire movies, Dracula movies, starring Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. And they put out all kinds of Universal-based monster movies. And Christopher Lee, I mean, the most iconic, one of the greatest actors ever, one of my favorite actors of all time. I grew up watching all of the classic schlocky Hammer films, all of the Dracula films. They're just amazing. And that was what all of those films really put Hammer on, the center of attention in the world of horror. And so for decades they didn't put anything out, but they kind of reemerged and put out the Kill List, and I was just like, holy shit. Like, so it was like, I don't know, it made me even more interested, and I was like, oh wow, like that's awesome. One of the most iconic horror companies is kind of back. And again, I don't know the movies I can't remember what movies they actually were, what they were called, but I did see fairly recently that there's a handful of newer horror films that just came out within the last year or two that are also Hammer productions. So it's great that they're back. But this movie is just so fucking awesome. It's brutal as all hell. It's super raw. It's such a raw and kind of nasty film. It's super low budget too, and I definitely feel like this is kind of like a, I don't know, almost equivalent to like a modern day. Even though this came out in 2011 or 2012, I kind of feel like this movie totally fits in with my love of, grimy, kind of low budget, gritty horror exploitation movies, because it's got that vibe. It's super raw, it's dirty, and it's like brutal as all hell. And the other thing that I love about this film is that I feel like this movie was hugely inspired by the original Wicker Man, which again, Christopher Lee, another connection to Hammer Studios, which is, Wicker Man is one of my all-time favorite occult or pagan horror films of all time, masterpiece. This film definitely takes a big influence from it. I think it definitely has, especially the second and third act. But again, it's its own thing. A great cast, great music. This movie has such a great atmosphere to it as well. It's super suspenseful. The script, the writing is so, I don't know. I kind of feel like it almost has a Reservoir Dogs kind of vibe to it. Like there's a lot of scenes of these characters kind of just being human beings and conversing over food and talking about, all of this kind of shit that they're dealing with through their lives, and the dialogue, the way it's kind of delivered is really gritty, but it feels like normal, just kind of normal everyday things that people actually say to each other, which is, a lot of interviews I've seen with Quentin Tarantino over the years, where he kind of likes to think of when he's writing characters, keeping it kind of real, where and grounded to where, what people actually talk about, on an everyday basis, and what you converse about. And a lot of the times, people are just kind of, you know, rattling off about this or that. It's not really so theatrical or so refined. It's you're just kind of talking about, what you had for dinner, or you got in a fight with your girlfriend, or your dog is sick, or you got laid last night. It's just kind of that everyday kind of thing. And Tarantino's always talked about, he wanted to like create his characters in a way and with dialogue of where people are just talking about kind of everyday shit. And Kill List has that big time. And the script is so great. This film is so highly suspenseful. I feel like I never hear this movie ever talked about, and I think it's a crime because it's one of the most badass movies that's come out in the last 20 years or so. I only have this DVD copy that I got of this incredible film. Definitely need to get an upgrade, but I've never seen it anywhere, in any of my travels. I've never seen, and I never ever see this movie ever talked about. Which Ben Wheatley has emerged to be a really popular director over the last 20 years. He's done quite a few movies since The Kill List, and I believe Kill List might have been, I think it might have been his second movie that he did. I don't think it was his first. I don't think Kill List was his debut. It might have been, but I think it was his like second debut. And he's a UK director. He's from England. He's a pretty awesome director. And he has this real interesting partnership where he co-writes a lot of his scripts and works a lot with his wife, who also is a collaborator. And I believe that they still work on films together, which is kind of an interesting dynamic. But that being said, to be honest, I I'm not really a fan of Ben Wheatley's films. Really, I've seen, he's come out with like 3 or 4 different films. I think since Kill List, and he's really gained a lot of respect and notoriety in the horror world. I've seen a lot of his other films get lots of press and coverage. You know, uh, again within the last 10 years, he made films such as High Rise, the sequel to Meg, the um, the Trench, Rebecca, Sightseers, Feel Fire, Down Terrace, which is actually, yeah, now that I think of it, Down Terrence, which was his first movie, which I haven't seen. That actually came out. That was his first film, which I heard is actually a really awesome movie, but I still haven't seen it. But I've seen most of his later films. He also made this other film that was kind of interesting. A few years back. I can't remember the name of it. Pretty prolific director. But I have to say, out of everything I've everything I've seen since Kill List, I haven't been a big fan of his films. Like I feel like a lot of his films are great, and he has horror elements in a lot. His films are, I guess, more genre defying. They're not. Kill List, I feel, is like just a badass horror film. It's got the crime drama or crime element. It's got a supernatural element, but it's a horror film. And I think a lot of his other films like have, where he does combine multiple genres. But I just feel like, to be honest, I feel like most of his other films that I've seen, and there's like 3 or 4 of them, I feel like they just, to me, that it just they don't they don't really make any sense, and it feels like the dots are not connecting, and I feel like the movie, like the film, never really doesn't really know what it's about because there's so many things going on, and there isn't this cohesiveness to it. So I really love directors that are really consistent. I think he's still a really great director. I think Kill List is kind of a masterpiece, but I don't think he is very consistent as a director. But that's just my opinion. There is a film which I can't think of that was a kind of an interesting film, but it was a little bit of a western supernatural kind of thing. But again, and it was very surrealistic. It was very, I guess if you want to say, avant-garde. Cool movie, but I didn't really know. I couldn't really understand what the hell was going on because it was like so all over the place stylistically. I don't know. But Kill List, I think, is easily the best thing I've ever seen him do, and I think it's a killer movie. This Kill List really put him on the map. Down Terrence was a movie also that was just, again, I really need to see that. I have not seen it. It came out before the Kill List. He, kind of ushered in, I think, when he kind of emerged as the director, he really ushered in this kind of new style of new, kind of this new school way of telling horror, and, in a real gritty way. But I think it's a crime, like I said, that Kill List is a film that isn't talked about because it's super badass. The premise of the story is awesome. It's basically these two guys that are, one of them is a war veteran. Both of these guys are hired to be these hitmen, or are hired as hitmen. To They're given this list of four different people to kill, and they're given this list to kill these four people who have done some horrible and disgusting things. They're paid an insane amount of money to do these things, and so they go on this journey to take out these people. And as things go, things totally get completely bonkers crazy, and they start realizing that this kind of shadowy organization that is essentially that hired them is kind of this, really bizarro cult, and they kind of get sucked into the cult, and it's really great because the thing that's really cool about this film is it's a character study of these two characters that are these hitmen, but it's you get a real glimpse of like, kind of how fucked up they are anyway. And one of the main characters, for instance, is a veteran, a war veteran who was in Iraq, and he went through hell when he was there, and he had tremendous trauma and PTSD after when he came back, and it goes into a lot of that as well. But it's such an awesome movie, great cast. Yeah, I can't recommend this film enough. I definitely need to get an upgrade of this on Blu-ray. The other night when I was going through some of my movies, I came across Kill List, and I'm like, you know what? The first thing I came to into my head was, man, why isn't this movie ever talked about? And not talked about enough. Ben Wheatley is again, he is someone who is pretty respected right now in the film industry, but still, I don't hear this movie Kill List get mentioned anywhere, and it's badass, so awesome. So thanks again, and I will see you next time. Peace.